think at its best points, Russell Corporation served as the nexus of Alex City, to be honest. I mean, the Russell family established healthcare and education in Alex City, and the jobs at Russell, you kept the city alive, basically.
Back in the days when Russell was really doing well, there was a lot of employees, and they had employees in several different towns. But Alex City had the majority of the employees, so there was a lot of money going back into the town because Russell was doing really well. Employees were doing well. They paid well, and the community was a good community.
When I worked for Russell in my initial years, there was very much a feeling of family. You felt like, of course, you knew a lot of people that you worked with because this is a small community. But not just that, but you got to know your supervisors, you got to know your managers. There was a great feeling of family.
My view is that Russell Corporation enjoyed a good relationship with the community. It provided a lot of college educations for children, a better way of life for a lot of people.
For a brief period of time, our office got moved up to number 8, to the number 8 mill. And we worked at that time under the oversight of an additional manager. This individual was very good to all of us. And I remember on one occasion before we went back down to High Tech, he bought and cooked steaks for every one of us in that plant, just to show us how much he appreciated us.
If the schools needed computers, they bought them. If the police force needed something, they bought it. If the city needed something, they bought it. And they pretty much, but now it was a one-horse town. It was only one industry, and that helped them avoid having to compete against other industries coming in on top of them. So the city pretty much protected them, and it was a good relationship.
I don't even know that there was an economic vision when Russell was here. I think everybody just kind of took it for granted that this was the way that it was.
We didn't realize that until they were gone, just how good a relationship we did have.
Working in HR in Russell, I worked in employment, and then I was general HR manager at several of the different locations. So it was an extremely positive experience as I got to meet a lot of people, obviously hired a lot of people during those years, and unfortunately ended up having to sever a number of those people.
You didn't see all these empty buildings everywhere. You ride right through the complex now, and you see just empty buildings or empty spaces where buildings used to be. And it was pretty good. Russell poured a lot of money into this town, poured a lot of money into the school systems. So everything was better back in the day.
Well, at the time that John Adams, who was a CEO of Russell Corporation, was ready to retire, the board of directors at that time looked for a replacement candidate. They selected Jack Ward to be the CEO and chairman of the board. Jack Ward really had not had any prior experience in running a public corporation, and from all indications was in a little bit over his head.
The hiring of Mr. Ward played a role in this general sense of unease. If for no other reason, he was not a Russell person.
Jack Ward, I think, became president in 98, perhaps 1998, and really restructured the company. I think he had a vision. He organized the company into silos of business silos. So probably did some good things, but a lot of people feel like that was kind of the beginning of the end. although I think he just came in at a time that was difficult in that textiles were going away.
When Jack Warren came in, that was the demise of Russell Corporation. Russell Corporation at that point was very, very cash heavy. They had no debt, and they had all this cash stuck back.
The company lost an unprecedented amount of money during the time that he was CEO, while he personally took out a lot of money for his own personal benefit in the way of salary and stock options. So I think if you're looking for the person who was at in the control seat at the time the plane flew into the side of the mountain, it's probably Jack Warren.
I moved to Coosa River in 2004, and then it was bought out by Fruit of the Loom. I was working at the Coosa River plant in Wetumpka when Fruit took over. And when they took over and bought the company, they came in within a matter of days and moved a couple of the corporate guys out, and then they began running the company. It was a big change from what we were accustomed to what Fruit of the Loom did. Fruit of the Loom, believe it or not, they were behind the times. They actually had us come in and change some of the things that Russell used to do back in the 80s. Russell had, at Coosa River down there, Russell had a automatic storage retrieval system. They had these computer cranes that would pick the cloth up and store the cloth. But Fruit of the Loom came in and ripped all that out. And
I think he had a vision. He organized the company into silos of business silos. So probably did some good things, but a lot of people feel like that was kind of the beginning of the end. Although I think he just came in at a time that was difficult in that textiles were going away.
When word got out that the plants would actually close, my initial reaction was, quite frankly, fear. Fear that I was going to lose my job.
I remember getting a phone call the day that they made the announcement in Alex City. And I was getting a phone call. My boss called me and said, "Hey, we've got to go down to another plant. We're having a big meeting." So I asked him, "What's the meeting about?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "I was told that we had to go to the meeting." So we went down to this meeting, and there's about 30, 40, maybe 50 people in there. And then the corporate people for the company came in, and they made that announcement that they were closing the manufacturing in Alex City. And the room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop.
It always was kind of the same. You would hear an audible gasp in the room, and then that would be followed by just some silence as people began to let that take root and settle in.
The majority of the people that was in this room had been working for this company for years, and that's all they knew, and that's all they ever done. They grew up going to work straight out of school into the manufacturing. I thought that this is where I'm going to work at. I like working here. I like working with the people I am. The money's pretty good. This is where I'm going to retire. And then all of a sudden, that was taken away. That was no longer an option.
After I was released from Russell in December of 2009, I had a period of time where I had a severance package that carried me for just a little while. But my first working opportunity outside of part-time work with the church was the library, the public library in Alexander City.
When they first started downsize, I was fortunate enough to get another job at another plant. So there happened to be some openings at another plant that Russell was going to keep running. Now I went from driving 10 miles to work to 50 miles driving to work one way, but I had a job. It paid well. I worked with a bunch of good group of guys and girls, and it was a good living. It provided for me and my family until they were bought out later on. So then we had to go through this all over again.
Yeah, I think we're pretty well. I mean, I'm over it, and I think a lot of other people over it. You know, you still got a lot of the older people, senior citizens here that work for Russell for their whole lives, and they're still, they still express regret and sorrow over what happened, but they're at this point they're no longer in the workforce. So it's just, it's just their feelings. We're not really seeing I don't think a psychological or a physiological decline in the city because of the loss of the mill.
Well, it seemed like back then there was more people, there was more people in the town, there was more industry, there was more things going on. It seemed like the community was better because people had things, people had steady jobs. Now people would drive 40, 50, 60, 70 miles to work at times. And when you're driving out of town and you're working out of town, you're spending a lot of money out of town. So you're not spending that money in town, and that money's not going to the city.
Individually, our local businesses and our people, honestly, have stepped up to bridge that gap and support the little things that keep a community going, like United Way and supporting our churches and supporting our youth league and things like that. I think those are things that we've been able to do that have kept the community alive. You see a lot of the people don't move away from here. They may drive to a job even an hour or two away every day, but they still want to live here. And I think that says a lot about this community, that we've managed to do that we've kept people here regardless of the fact that we lost all these jobs. I think if we had to go back and do it again as an economic development organization, I think we would try not to panic as much as we did. I think that we took the first available jobs that were brought to us, and we've kind of, for a while, we were back into the same, putting all our eggs in one basket like we did with Russell. We put all our eggs in the automotive industry basket. And so, if there's a downturn in the automotive industry, we're going to be hit the same way that we were hit when there was a downturn in the textile industry. And that's not a good position to be in. And so I think if we had it to do over again as an organization, we would try to be more diverse and more targeted in what we wanted to recruit and what we wanted, the jobs that we wanted to be here.
Now, recently, I do think there have been signs that there is growth again in Alexander City. The Russell Medical Center expansion is, I think, going to be sort of the centerpiece of that. We're fortunate that we do have a very good hospital and medical community, particularly for a town of our size. It's very, very good facilities and very good doctors and staff there. You're seeing a good bit of development on the 280 corridor. You're seeing some renewed interest in redevelopment of downtown Alexander City. You're seeing continued development on Lake Martin, which I think provides a good opportunity for new businesses in the area. So yes, I think over the past few years, there have been good signs of new vitality for this area.